I'm Douglas Carswell and I run the Mississippi Center for Public Policy. And you're probably thinking that is the weirdest Mississippi accent you've ever heard. That's because I'm originally from England. Before making my home in Mississippi, I was a member of the British Parliament for 12 years, and I stood for election 4 times, and I went into politics in Britain to get Britain out of the European Union, what today we call Brexit. Having got in, I co-founded Vote Leave, the official Brexit campaign, and having achieved that, I then stood down from Parliament and I moved to Mississippi. And I imagine you're thinking, moved to Mississippi? Really? Was Florida full? Let me explain. I wanted to work for a state-based think tank because I can't help notice that so many of the great innovations in public policy in my lifetime have come from American states. Welfare reform from Wisconsin, school choice from Arizona and West Virginia, charter schools from the Midwest. I think today we can legitimately claim that Mississippi is pioneering a lot of really good conservative free market reform. In 2021, we deregulated the labour market significantly. In 2022, we passed a bill to create a flat rate income tax, a flat 4% income tax rate. We've kept our energy costs consistently low, avoiding all that nonsensical renewable Biden nonsense. In 2024, we implemented school funding reform as a step towards our goal of universal school choice. And this year, 2025, we passed a bill to eliminate the state income tax in Mississippi altogether. We are the first state to do that since oil-rich Alaska in 1980. Earlier, we managed to implement tort reform to make Mississippi a somewhat more sane and stable place to do business. Over the past decade, we've implemented a revolution, I would say actually maybe a restoration, in the way that children are taught to read. We've insisted that they're taught using phonics, what most people would call common sense. Now, as a result of that phonics reform, we now have 4th graders in Mississippi who read better than 4th graders in, to pick some states at random, California, New York, Michigan, and Wisconsin. I think we can claim in Mississippi that this combination of reform we've implemented is a really potent example of free market reform at work. And as a result of it, it's transforming our state. Over the past 5 years, there has been more economic growth in Mississippi than over the previous 15 years combined. It's because of this free market reform we've implemented that Mississippi now has one of the fastest rising household incomes in America. Last year we had a 6% increase in average household incomes in the state, the 2nd fastest in the country. Now this pleases me enormously, but makes people back in the old country rather alarmed. In 2023, Mississippi's per capita GDP, which is the gold standard benchmark of how well a society is doing economically, Mississippi's per capita GDP in 2023 overtook that of the United Kingdom for the first time ever. Wow. And this pleases me even more. This year we're on course to overtake Germany in terms of per capita GDP. I think Schadenfreude is the phrase. I think it's fair to say that across America, when people talk about Mississippi, it's no longer because we're last, but because in many ways, like with reading and tax cuts, we're starting to lead. Now you might say, okay, that's fine. This Brit, he's pretending he's from Mississippi. It's all very well for them in Mississippi to get excited about Mississippi, but what does all this matter for anyone anywhere else? And that's a very valid question, I think. When I first moved to Mississippi, a number of my American friends, not those in Mississippi, but a number of my American friends from out of state, were kind enough to share an old American saying with me. Thank God for Mississippi. They explained in good humor, I think it was good humor, that as long as Mississippi was included in any data, there was no chance of their state being ranked last. I think we're beginning to change that narrative slowly. Now, obviously this matters to us in Mississippi, but why does it matter anywhere else? I think this shows that smart public policy delivered at a state level is the way that Conservatives can win. Organisations like the South Carolina Policy Council are absolutely vital to securing state-based wins, and it's through state-based wins that Conservatives ultimately win and shift this country in the right direction. Occupancy of the White House comes and goes. The midterms come and go. If you win with organisations like the South Carolina Policy Council at a state level, that is how we get back control of this country, state by state. It also matters because, bluntly, if the free market can be made to work in Mississippi, it can be made to work anywhere. If we can get notionally conservative Republicans in Mississippi, a state that epitomizes the good old boy system, if we can get the good old boys who are notionally conservative Republicans to actually do the right thing in Mississippi, we can get them to do the right thing anywhere. Now, I was fortunate enough to have Michael show me around your beautiful city, Charleston. And he took me to the seafront. And I'm sure you'll be pleased to hear he was quick to point out Sullivan's Islands. Sullivan's Island, a place you always point out to any passing Brits. He was generous to explain what happened there to some of my compatriots a while ago. But as I mournfully looked out over the harbour, I cast my mind back to the old country, Britain, across 4,000 miles of ocean. And I thought, what can we do to get them to do the right thing back there? What's happening in Britain today is so sad, it's so tragic. Britain left the European Union, but Britain still suffers from the European disease. High taxes, high regulation, intolerance of free speech. It's a disaster, it's a catastrophe. It's a tragedy to see the land of Adam Smith, of David Ricardo, of Margaret Thatcher have the highest tax burden in 50 years. It's run by a government that controls nearly 50% of GDP in public spending. It's run by a government that wants to micromanage the nooks and crannies of people's lives. Rather than take the opportunities of Brexit, rather than seize Brexit as an opportunity to do the right thing, Britain seems to have done the opposite. Britain seems to have moved in the wrong direction. It's sobering to think that last year, more people were arrested in Britain for what they posted online than in communist China. More people were arrested in Britain for what they posted online than in China and Russia and Turkey combined. That is the scale of the problem that Britain faces. And unlike the challenge Margaret Thatcher faced, it's far more profound than just economics. Britain has an administrative state that controls or tries to control everything apart from the country's borders. The country is run by mad officials and left-wing judges. They're the ones who really run the country. And they seem determined to encourage everyone to leave the country, apart from the people they should be encouraging to leave the country, those who come in illegally. It is a tragedy. How do we explain it? Every American child needs to understand and know the story of the American founding. I mean, what a story it is. You would have heard it so many times, you probably take it for granted, but I'm still relatively new to it, so let me recap briefly. 13 colonies kicked out and defeated the greatest power on earth, the British, mainly at Sullivan's Island. I gather there was a couple of minor skirmishes at Yorktown and Saratoga Springs, but the battle was apparently, I'm reliably informed, mainly at Sullivan Island. Having booted them out, you got the brightest and the best to sit in an old courthouse in Philadelphia and design a constitution, a system of self-government that has been the most sublime system of self-government ever created by man. It is an extraordinary story, and next year you celebrate 250 years of your Declaration of Independence. And I have to put it to you, in all honesty, if you could magically bring George III back, I think he would join in those celebrations. I honestly think he would look at it and think, my goodness, wow, it really has worked. 13 ragtag colonies have risen to become the greatest republic in human history. It is an extraordinary achievement. Britain gained self-government with Brexit, but we've not yet learnt how to govern ourselves well. You got the brightest and the best, the people you call the founders, to figure out what to do. We've done the equivalent of putting Aaron Burr in charge. We've had a succession of charlatans running the country since the Brexit referendum, and it is a disaster. But I don't actually despair. I really don't despair. All of Britain's problems are caused by bad public policy, and all of them can be fixed if we get good conservative public policy implemented by a competent government. Now, the first bit's relatively easy. Finding the competent bit, I think, will be a little bit harder, but I think it will happen. I don't talk about if Britain will recover. I think a big part of Britain's recovery, when and not if it happens, when it happens, not if it happens. If you think Britain's in a bad condition today, imagine what it must have been like in 1940. Imagine what it must have felt like in 1979. Imagine what it must have felt like in 1916. A big part of Britain's recovery, when not if it happens, will be inspired by the American example. And this, I think, is something that really excites and uplifts me. America in 2025 has shown how a Western country can re-establish control of its borders. You've done it. America in 2025 shows how you can deal with illegal immigrants. You deport them. America in 2025 has shown how you can deal with the administrative state and activist judges. America in 2025 is a shining city on a hill and an example that Brits and others around the world need to follow. You guys are doing it, and where you lead, others will follow. Here in South Carolina Policy Council is leading the way with tax reforms, with tort reform. America overall has shown how low-cost energy is the key to economic growth. You've shown how lower taxes are the key to unlocking enterprise and growth. America consistently shows and reminds the world that social progress comes from individuals and families, not from the government. This is what it means to me when I say America is a shining city on a hill. Now, America works not because you're lucky because of the presidents you've had. In fact, look at one or two of the presidents you've had over the past 10 years. It's despite rather than because of one or two of them. America doesn't work because the laws of physics are different here, or because there's something in the water here. America works because of decisions made in a courthouse in Philadelphia in the summer of 1787. Decisions that injected liberty into the DNA of the young republic. The founders created a model of 50 states being free to do what they want and to innovate and to pioneer and to replicate what worked elsewhere. Mississippi's success today is proof that the American model still works and is absolutely essential to the country's future. State freedom to innovate is the secret of America's success. That's why in this room, those of us who run think tanks and work for think tanks and support think tanks, that's why our mission is more than just tax cuts and tort reform. Those are really important things. But our bigger mission has got to be to preserve the idea of the American model in the hearts and the minds of the next generation. That is bigger than any tax cut you could ever want to implement. That's why in Mississippi we run a leadership academy, which teaches young Mississippians about the morality of the free market. It's shocking, but some of them have been through several years of state education and no one has ever explained the moral principle of the pricing mechanism. They're taught by progressive teachers about market failure. They're never taught about the miracle that means that each of us for a few $100s can have more computing power in our pocket than NASA had the year they landed a man on the moon. They're never taught the moral case for the free market. It's why in Mississippi we have produced a children's book, What Makes America Special, the clue being in the title. It is an attempt to, an illustrated children's book, teach 7 to 10-year-olds about American exceptionalism. We've incidentally managed to sell copies in 40 states now. It's why I collaborate with PragerU to make videos that teach people about the importance of patriotism, or what you call patriotism. But I'm an immigrant. I moved my family and my dog across 4,000 miles of ocean to come to America, and I want every child in America to appreciate America the way my daughter does. She may not have understood or known, she was a bit embarrassed about it, poor girl. The first day at school, she didn't know the words to the Pledge of Allegiance. We made sure she knew them the second day. I want every American to appreciate America the way she does. I moved to America because, in the words of Ronald Reagan, I believe that freedom and liberty is what's elevated humankind from the swamp to the stars. And if you believe that, there's no country that compares to the United States. Look, I might not yet have mastered your language. I might still say water when I mean water. I might take the lift when I mean use the elevator. I might even occasionally sometimes use the wrong side of the road. But I know enough about America to know that each of us in this room is the beneficiary of the most sublime inheritance on this earth. If we don't nurture the idea of America in the minds of the next generation, the progressive left will nullify it. So, God bless you. God bless America.